It takes a real mix of people to create a community. And the question's also got to be asked, if an architect's got a good design that works somewhere else, why shouldn't they just tweak it a bit and put it down in Leederville?
The Leederville entertainment precinct's always been somewhere that I've liked to frequent.
We need this all around WA, but a place like Leederville could get destroyed very, very quickly, and it's kind of right on the edge.
I bought my first house in Leederville in 1980, and this is it. Back then, we'd just come out of the 1970s and we were hippies, but we were living in an urban area. So today we probably would have been called hipsters. And the sticker you can see in the window of the rainbow, we put that one up there. So it's nice to see it's still there. But the father of my girlfriend said, "Why do you want to live in Leederville? It's a slum." And this is the reason. Back in the 1980s, we used to say, someone should open up a cafe. And now, Leederville's one of the most vibrant places you can find in Perth. But the essential character of Leederville is under threat. We're seeing a lot of this sort of construction going up. It's not necessarily bad, but you can see it anywhere. You can see it in Perth, you can see it in Sydney, probably see it in New York. And the thing is, it doesn't really understand the essential Leederville character. The houses in Leederville are as diverse as the people we find here. The Edwardian house that I first lived in, back in the 1980s, was typical of houses built about 60 years ago. They were small, they were contained. Architecturally, you can find places that are a lot more elaborate in that style in other parts of Perth. But they are well connected to the street. They had front fences that were designed to be leant over, to talk with your neighbours, to pat the dog. And the people who lived there weren't rich and famous. They were the ones who lived and worked in the commercial areas. When I first lived here, I got to know two elderly women who lived in West Leederville. They were Miss Ida and Miss Millie Lacey, and they were legends. They'd been living here for over 80 years, and they could remember when there were Aboriginal people living and camping at the northern end of Lake Munga. The area underneath where I lived would have been a whole swampy extension of Lake Munga, and it would have been very rich grounds for the Noongar people. But they were pushed off their land by politics that were very, very different to what it is today. At the end of the 1930s, and particularly after the Second World War, when there was more money around, we saw more houses like this being built, the Californian or American bungalow. They were solid, they were comfortable, they were conservative, they were built from brick, tiles, and they were more permanent in the landscape. But they still had that very, very strong connection to the street. You can see this wall. It's the sort of place you can stand on one side, talk to someone going past on the other. And they reflected the Menzies era. The rooms were bigger, the land was bigger, and it was the start of the suburban life, the 50s dream. This solid and conservative 1950s feel spoke of positive relationships to traditional institutions. It spoke of a quiet, comfortable sort of world. In the 1950s and 1960s, there's a great influx of Greek and Italian migrants into Leederville. They'd left a war-ravaged Europe and they were looking for a better life in Australia. The Rees are a fairly common name around the Leederville area. Can you tell us, how does that thing all work?
I suspect it all starts with the Rees store on Oxford Street. That was started by my great-grandfather down in Fremantle a time ago. But my family has had a strong connection to Leederville through that business. Both my grandparents live off Anzac Street.
One of the things we see when we look around Leederville, a lot of these houses that were built by Italian people or Greek people, and typically they'd have sort of 2 stories, fairly flat roofs, but lots of columns and a bit of terrazzo stone and that type of thing. Why do you think the Italian and Greek people built those sorts of places?
I think it really resembles that Mediterranean style, a lot of the colours and textures in that built form. My connection with that type of built form is more about how the space is utilised. European families tend to have houses on larger lots, have their gardens and their fruit trees, so they could pickle their olives and do all that type of stuff. But they're also big on socialising, entertaining, hosting. Australia is definitely the lucky country. A lot of European families have flourished in Australia. I think times were tough, but it presented an opportunity to start again. I think with newfound wealth, they were able to invest that back in their homes and really reflect their personalities.
In the 1980s, Leederville was a bit of a backwater. In 1973, the Mitchell Freeway had been built and it cut Leederville in half. Oxford Street used to start right down there and extend all the way through where the freeway is and carry on out to the other side there towards the railway station. And there were shops and houses all the way along. The freeway gave people access to the northern suburbs. These were new, they were clean, they were wonderful. And if you had a car, you could get anywhere. But it gutted Leederville and a number of other inner city suburbs. And perhaps that's where my father-in-law, to be, got the idea that Leederville was a slum. By the mid-1980s, people were rediscovering inner city urban living and beginning to trickle back into Leederville. The 1980s also saw a global social change in Western countries. Margaret Thatcher had said, "There's no such thing as society." And Gordon Gekko said, "Greed is good." In Western Australia, our local boys Alan Bond and Laurie Connell emulated this by borrowing like there was no tomorrow, and they were investing in wild flights of fantasy. This set the tone for a highly individualistic, it's all about me culture. And with the accumulation of wealth, there came the fear of losing it, which is what happened in the 1992 recession. The 1990s also gave us two public safety campaigns. Stranger Danger made every parent afraid that their child could be molested by a stranger on the street. And Neighbourhood Watch effectively crowdsourced community policing. This combination of hyper-individualism and the idea that the public realm was an unsafe space brought in the age of fear. We fortified our houses and lived an internal life. Life on the street evaporated, and the idea of the public realm disintegrated. The age of fear was a boon for developers because it gave them an additional selling point for their product. It played into our deepest human fear of a dangerous stranger lurking outside our house or outside our car.
All your enemies are faced. Your teeth are in their place and you're left standing on.
The planners tried to rationalise this armouring of houses by preparing designing out crime guidelines. However, the end result has been less than satisfactory. This is an interesting example of how an architect has made something that is code compliant, but nevertheless shuts off these apartments from life on the street. If you look at this building, with its high elevated frontages, its skillful placement of bars, the awnings on the side that create a feeling of you're being watched. The overall message that this building is giving is move on by, you're not wanted, there's nothing here for you. So the tragedy of this is, although the selling point is you are safe, the reality is that the people who are living in these apartments are probably more isolated than ever before. How does this support the strong community interaction that Leederville is known and loved for? So what sort of style do we want? Now, clearly, we don't want to mandate one of the Leederville historic styles, so we all look like Edwardian bungalows. That would be totally faux and derivative. We want to see something different. At the same time, we don't want these cookie-cutter style developments that come straight out of developers' catalogue. We want something that says, this is Leederville. One of the people who've done a lot of thinking about this is Jeff Warren, who's the state architect.
Unfortunately, there is a creeping in of fairly generic developments that could be in any suburb around Perth. So you end up with a kind of homogenised environment, and this is the opposite.
Yeah.
This is rich and varied, and to make it richer and more varied is kind of what I'm promoting, rather than unwinding that richness and turning it into something quite conventional.
Yeah.
We need this all around WA, but a place like Leederville could get destroyed very, very quickly, and it's kind of right on the edge. So it should be different, it should be arty, it should be modest. I don't think it should be necessarily too expensive, and it should be very varied, where you could have old people, young people and families. And so allowing that kind of improvisation and cultures to mix, and you know, our society is so much more varied now than it was in the 60s and 70s, that we could really celebrate that.
People love Leederville's bohemian character. It's got a grittiness and an urban sort of edginess that is really special. It's also got an authenticity and an integrity that you don't find in many other centres. At the same time, it's a very safe place. It's sort of family friendly and people like living here. And there's a real sense of connection here. It takes a real mix of people to create a community. Leederville isn't populated by rich young professionals hanging out in trendy bars. It's got families, it's got people who live in share houses. It's got homeless people who find a refuge here. And it's got real businesses as well. It isn't only cafes and restaurants. It's got places where you can get the tyres on your car changed. You can go to a supermarket. And if you want to do something really basic, you can go to the post office. It can be argued, what's really wrong with rolling out inexpensive building stock? Well, the answer to that question really is, Leederville's now come of age. It's not the place it used to be. It's got a history, it's got an integrity, it's got a story. And what we really need to do now is to capture that story and that integrity. And we need a new way to look at our built form. Leederville is a village. It's not the CBD. It's got a layout that allows you to walk around and ride a bike. It's got a human scale about it. It's got a texture and a sort of a grungy sort of soulfulness about it, and a sense of becoming, never actually being quite finished. And this has got to be honoured as well. We're looking for architects and developers who want to co-design with the community, and they have the ability to understand what makes Leederville unique, and they can build places that show the essence of the Leederville character. We need to create places with soul. We need to build the street life and do things at a human scale. And we need to build Leederville's identity and not subtract or dilute it with cut and paste from elsewhere. So we owe it to our lineage, to our history, to the Miss Idas and the Miss Millies and the rainbow in my window.